What's Free2Z all about? Caterpillars to butterflies. Actually, yeah, let's see. What do we got here?
Got our clicker here, so we're good.
Yeah, I'm Skylar. We got Jonathan here. Good to see y'all. Yeah, so what's the idea from the beginning? Everyone kind of knows the problems of big tech. We're just listening to a podcast about this stuff. We made up this little T3C3 thing, which they kind of come in pairs. They're taking, they're confiscating, they're tracking, they're censoring, they're twisting, they're controlling. And we don't need to kind of go into the details there. We can talk about it later if anyone wants to, talk about specifics. But kind of had this, Zcash. It's resistant to these things that big tech is doing to us. So, initially it's kind of, let's make something, let's do something about these problems, let's empower people to kind of make their own way. And yes, so philosophy-wise, let's put something out there and see what people think of it, see how people use it, take feedback, respect the users. So I have this kind of extreme programming XP kind of background, and our strength is kind of, we can release software, we can change the software, we can test the software, and we can get new features and, change it. So we're just gonna iterate and see where it goes, and kind of have these core principles, like we're gonna respect the user's privacy to the utmost extent. We're gonna try to do DKYC, so we don't even, require email verification. So maybe people can opt into some things, but by default, we just completely are 100% private. We don't have ads. And some sites are really annoying. They have these walled gardens, so you can't get your content back off, and you can't fully interact unless you got to log in, and they don't want you to leave the site. You can't just go connect on Signal with people. So we have this kind of philosophy that we're going to allow people as much freedom as allowed by the law. So, there's a few things. We're a U.S. corporation, so, to the extent of the law, we're going to allow free speech, for instance. And, we kind of flip it where I think big tech, a lot of times, they want to know everything about you, and you have no privacy, but then they're not transparent about what they're doing. So we want to kind of flip that where we can show you the algorithm, and the internal workings of our software can be transparent, even maybe in the future open source, whereas the user can be as private and as free as possible. And yeah, so basically the opposite of the T3C3. Yeah, and so there's a lot of features. It kind of started out just maybe people want to post a page and they can have some content, and at least they can put it there, and they can put a Zcash address and raise some money. And it kind of started there, but all kinds of features come up right away. You want images, and then let's upload the images, and might as well have videos, and we want to embed, and kind of LaTeX math is one of my features, so I don't know if anyone's actually cared about that. That was me. I was the user. I was like, yeah, LaTeX. Code. Yeah, and then I didn't really know people were going to be wanting to kind of have a profile. Like I started out, and maybe people just want to have like a help me, send me, whatever they want to do. But no, people want to kind of link it to who they are and build, multiple pages under a profile. So that started to happen. Live streaming seemed like a good idea, and people are using it for all kinds of things, connecting with their communities. There's music lessons. There's all kinds of stuff going on with live streaming. I actually use it to call my wife back home, which is actually works better than Verizon. We weren't supposed to mention any names or whatever, but we did some AI features. So we have kind of we can detect spam, and we have a chat bot, and we have kind of a cool thing where I always kind of think in English. I speak Spanish okay, and Portuguese less okay, but so I read somebody's page and say Spanish or Portuguese, but I can make my comment, and I can get a GPT translate to Spanish. So we're kind of building some of these kind of cool features. I think Series came up. Pretty recently. A lot of content serialized. You have a podcast, and you want to have the whole thing. You have a comic book or serialized prose. So there's a lessons, and yeah. So then we have subscriptions and donations. So you want to get notifications. So all this kind of stuff just grew up organically, and you want to classify the content. So, there's poetry versus, news about Zcash versus, Spanish election news or something like that. So we kind of have categorization and tags. And then we have this little in-app currency called Free2Z, which kind of underpins the whole thing by kind of preventing spam and abuse. So I kind of think of it as a granular invite. And it creates like a web of trust. So, you can earn Free2Zs, you can get subscriptions, you can kind of build them up, and then you can give them to your friends. And then, once you have enough, you can completely use everything. But like initially, you only get a few, so you could try things out, but you have to either get granted or know somebody to kind of, make full use. Because we can't, a lot of this stuff does actually kind of cost money, so we can't just let people, abuse it. So, yeah, throw it to Jonathan to kind of tell us about what actually happened.
Yeah, so when we came up with the title for this talk, it was Caterpillar to Butterfly. And what does that mean? Well, we're talking about the evolution of Free2Z over the last year from sort of its initial proof of concept to now being this vibrant platform where we have thousands of Z pages and all these creators who are using it every day to kind of live their dreams. And it was kind of funny when we were initially coming up with a name for this application. We thought Skylar thought maybe Go Fund Yourself would be a good name.
Free to give.
Right, free to give, yeah. Go Fund Yourself, free to give. But the concept was we're really unlocking the power of Zcash to make true peer-to-peer payments. So what that means is there's no intermediaries. So, it's kind of like real internet digital cash. And we combine that with content and make it as easy as used for people to actually make payments to others. So that's been used for all kinds of things. We've had, folks who have really terrible medical situations, might have cancer, they've raised money. Other folks for dental treatments. I mean, it's really all over the map. But what I want to talk about here let's focus on some of the creators. And a number of these creators have actually used the site themselves to raise funds, to get the tools that they need to produce content and to contribute. So the first one I wanted to point out was Roosevelt Ordonez, who's actually right here. Roosevelt, so yeah, wave to the crowd. But Roosevelt has just incredible talent, lots of skills, but he was missing a decent computer to actually be able to generate content. So he had a campaign on Free2Z, which was successful. May have been a visit from the 5Zec Bandit, but yeah, his campaign was successful, and since then he's been just this incredible part of the Zcash community in general, and also generating content on Free2Z. And I wanted to talk also about Aura, who's also here today. So when we started this out, we didn't realize the importance of community. And one of the most surprising things is how this big community has kind of grown up around Free2Z. And I think one of our key principles is actually the principle of community. There's a lot of people from Venezuela on the site, so they taught me a word, bochinche, which just kind of means everybody together. So I think that's the sort of defining characteristic of Free2Z is it's like everybody together, producing content, unlocking the power of Zcash, making payments back and forth, and just really...
Say it one more time.
Bochinche.
Bochinche.
That's the word right there, yeah. So we're about the bochinche. We're about this community building. So Aura has been a huge part of that. And then wanted to talk about some of the new features. So as Skylar was talking about, serializing content is a big thing. And the person who's really taken this as far as possible is Ender, who has this really awesome kind of like cypherpunk series, Zcash Crusader, which I encourage you all to check out. Actually, ironically, while he was starting on this, his computer broke down. So he ended up using Free2Z to generate funds to continue developing this series and was able to get the tools that he needed. So really exciting there. And we're not just about nerd stuff, right? Like beyond tech, computers, programming. We also have serious literature, and we even have poetry on the site. And Cafe Poesia has been publishing a ton of erotic poetry lately. So yeah, it just shows that there's all kinds of different art being produced on Free2Z. Speaking of other artists, there's Andres Palmar, who is, in one word, a virtuoso. He is a mandolin player, among other things, and he is just an incredible musician and has given master workshops in a number of different countries, currently based out of Mexico. So if thinking about next Zcon in Mexico, Andres, I'm sure would encourage that.
You can do live music lessons from Andres and pay him in Zcash. So get him up on there.
That is
in Free2Z.
This is one of the first freelancing opportunities on Free2Z. Is you can actually take lessons from Andres. So I highly recommend if anyone wants to learn mandolin or other stringed instruments or music theory, he's definitely your guy. Yeah, and I want to talk about Crypto Nativa. We don't only have art and sort of fiction content. There's also serious legal analysis going on Free2Z. So Crypto Nativa is a lawyer. She's here right now, and she has been publishing very detailed and sort of serious analysis of privacy rights and human rights on Free2Z. And then there's Alberdione, who rates hard-hitting analysis of the news with a focus on blockchain, especially. So yeah, another just great resource. And there are too many other creators on Free2Z to mention today, but yeah, just a great list here. So I encourage you all to check out their pages. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about some future opportunities. So tell us about the global freelancing, Skylar.
Yeah, so something that kind of emerged is that there's these vast income disparities between different countries, and so I kind of think if you're in the Bay Area or New York and you make 6 figures, are you going to post a Zcash address? Maybe not. Maybe it's more attractive and more, competitive with different, other situations and currencies. So, I got to thinking more about this freelancing opportunity and just kind of making business connections across the globe. And I think the good news is there's a pretty clear path for Zcash to gain a lot of traction and price-wise gain a lot of traction, because as more people are willing to work for Zcash, more people are hiring with Zcash. If it's kind of a known thing, we can introduce more people to Zcash. And I think initially, a lot of times, someone's going to want to work, get the Zcash, and convert it to local currency. But once people experience that, and if we can close the gap, and make that very easy so people have a really good experience. They're like, oh, I'll try Zcash. I heard it works. I can work for it. Oh, look, I got money. Oh, I can pay my bills. So that's cool. But as as prosperity increases, once you know that that's possible, and you see the power of it, you're going to end up saving in Zcash. And people we were hiring might think, we better go ahead and get some more Zcash because we want to hire more people. We have a big project coming up. So I think I think the numbers are insane there, actually. If you think of one person, there might be a $50,000 I think is a low, but there's this certain amount of disparity between U.S. and another country, say, and that's just one person is 50,000, say, per year of economic possibility there, and so times that by 1,000, it's 50 million a year, for 1,000 people, and so if you say Zcash at 1,000, that's $21 billion. You do the math, it's in the order of magnitude of 1 million people. So if we have kind of an economy of 1 million people who are willing to work for Zcash, and we have a nice, slick wallet, and we have liquidity, and it's working on both sides, I think, really, I think we can get a lot of traction with fewer people than you might expect. So I like to advocate this as kind of the way forward in Zcash adoption. That makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I think if you need to hire somebody and you have Zcash, I encourage you to make a page. And likewise, if you have skills and you're willing to work for Zcash, I encourage you to make a page on Free2Z. And yeah, connect with people, because those connections are also going to strengthen, these small businesses and your startup, and as it's going to grow on both sides, So I think, I encourage everyone to try it out, and let's experiment with that case, because I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah. Speaking of potential, so free speech is a major issue, and we see an opportunity with free speech broadcasting. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So this is a slide about social media censorship, and as you see, the first bar there is India, then after that is the United States, and this is these are basically videos being taken down from YouTube. So there's beyond just straight, the removal of controversial content on YouTube and other streaming platforms. We also have a type of softer censorship, which is censorship by demonetization. So there's some major content producers, like the man on this slide is Julio Astilleros, who's a renowned Mexican journalist. And he's sometimes will be on the air, on live, and he will note the moment at which YouTube has taken away his ability to monetize his content. So this is a problem for serious journalists and for all kinds of content producers. And currently there's no easy solution for this. The demonetization is being done by kind of these black box machine learning algorithms. And it's having, at this point, a chilling effect on free speech. So where does Free2Z come in? We see Free2Z as expanding and becoming a free speech repository. So as a content creator, you can initiate your content on Free2Z and make that kind of like the initial point, and then later on we'll offer the ability to restream on all of these other networks and platforms. And so obviously we're not going to allow any content that's illegal or dangerous, but we will allow up to the limits of the law. And right now there's a ton of content that is not anywhere close to being illegal that's being demonetized and even outright censored on major social media platforms. So we see this Free2Z as being the new source of origin for free speech content. And back to monetization with Zcash. So Free2Z allows content creators to monetize their content, and they do it in a way that is truly peer-to-peer. So I think frequently when people think of peer-to-peer, they're just meaning like, oh, it was just super easy to make a payment, right? That's peer-to-peer. That's not true peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer means that it's literally going from, like in the case of Zcash, your Z address to someone else's. There's no intermediary. And that's what we have with Free2Z. It's actual, true peer-to-peer. And the exciting thing about that is it means you don't need, for instance, to sacrifice your privacy when you're trying to tip a content creator or support someone who you believe in. We are able to respect and maintain your privacy even while you're making these donations and supporting content creators. So that's kind of like one of the most exciting things about our platform. All right, over the past year, Free2Z has developed from its initial stages as a POC into a vibrant and growing community, the Bochinche, as we were talking about. And we're seeing now that content creators are using their Zcash-enabled pages in all sorts of creative and exciting ways, from producing true art, poetry, music, live streaming music, to serious legal analysis, to blockchain analysis. And then we're seeing with series that you just a massive amount of content is kind of being serialized and put out there. So we're really excited about that. And there's a lot of future possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can take questions. I think you did a good job with all that, and yeah, thanks for being here. We can also talk offline.
Questions? Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. So we have some questions that have come through. Let's start with this one. Free2Z is an excellent platform to generate content and receive donations in Zec. How do you feel about developing a tool that has helped many people in different circumstances within the Zcash community?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some of these stories, like, it almost, I might tear up, Hold on. Let me take a deep breath. It's going to be all right. Like, I mean, it makes it really worth it, because if you're just building software and people aren't using it and appreciating it, then, we probably would have given up. But it's like, it is making a difference. And even if it's just a handful, like all the tourists are at the water park, and riding the slide. And Montserrat, the not to be pretentious and compare it to Montserrat, but the parking lot was empty, and it's like maybe that's okay, but like it makes a difference in some people's lives, and like that's important. And I think there can be traction there that it's actually working and it's creating prosperity, and so yeah, it like that makes it worth doing, and that's like why we're still in the game,
Yeah. Next question. Every day, more people are joining Free2Z. Do you envision it becoming a platform that can support multiple digital exchanges in the future?
Digital exchanges.
Yes. I'm not entirely sure what that person meant. I don't know if you...
It's interesting, yeah. Like, I'll throw it over to the league. I'm kind of the engineering. I mean, we're both engineers, but Jonathan is surrounded by lawyers. He has a very legal. Exchanges.
In terms of exchanges, so I think one thing to highlight with Free2Z is like there's an opportunity for growth in multiple directions. So we have a platform right now that's 100% based on Zcash, and in the future, I think we can see other opportunities to interact both with other potential types of blockchains and coins, and also with fiat more directly. I think one of the key things that we see is that on Free2Z, like Zcash is the heart, but at the same time, you're also trying to bring in people who maybe haven't have that much familiarity with Zcash and get them to use it in kind of like a daily way. And that's where we feel like our sweet spot is. And so we do want to make it easier for folks, for instance, who may just have like a credit card or something to be able to come in. They should be able to transfer back and forth, maybe get their Zcash. And we've already been like through legal review on that. It seems like this is a real possibility. So yeah, I do see like, I don't ever see this as being like a typical exchange, but there will be abilities to kind of like do some sort of conversion and be able to support content creators directly on the platform. So yeah, that is a direction we want to take it.
Great.
Yeah, a lot of times we're kind of visualizing the person who's never heard of Zcash and what is their experience. Yeah. And yeah, like making that more fluid. So it's like, oh wow, yeah, this thing really works, and like it's very useful, and so then they can see it's a useful tool. And yeah, just kind of like putting ourselves in their shoes though is like never heard of it, don't know what this is, and what's their like first experience with it. So
I guess one of the key insights that kind of Skylar had with this application is that you really don't need to use the blockchain for everything, right? So there are certain situations in which putting something in an immutable blockchain makes total sense, right? Like if we're talking about these serious transactions, someone's paycheck or making a payment across borders, like you want that on the chain. But there's a lot of like smaller things, like social media intents, that kind of stuff, where we think that maybe that's not the best use case for a blockchain, and where like a sort of traditional web application makes more sense. And that's basically the way that Free2Z's been built. It's like, okay, when we can use a database, we'll do that. We're not going to put everything right onto Zcash. And the exciting thing about that is we've been developing this sort of internal token, the 2Z, which allows you to show these sort of like instantaneous intents. So like if I want to support content, boost it. If I want to reward a creator, like you can do that already with the existing platform. And then we're going to offer a way to make those 2Zs convertible into Zcash.
Is that an official announcement?
Yeah, that's an official announcement. Yeah. No, we're going to have a way to make. Yeah. This is exciting, right? But there will be a way to take the 2Zs and at some point to cash them out. How that, in what form that takes, we're still figuring that, but it's going to be possible. So we see developing these sort of like social credits as being like a big thing on Free2Z, and it's why content producers are going to find it very easy to get rewarded for just producing great content and doing what they love. So
awesome. That's cool to hear that announcement. Skylar called it out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm like thinking, oh, whoa. Okay.
I don't think people would have noticed unless he's like, oh, it's an announcement. They're like, yeah. But no, this is a huge capability that we think is important.
Very cool. If you could equate an ideal Free2Z to another current optimized platform, what would that platform be? Comparing, your guys' vision of Free2Z to like a current platform that you guys.
Oh, we're gonna destroy X, obviously. All of it, yeah. Z is greater than X. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's this famous book about creating startups, and one of the chapters, I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but it's have an enemy. And so, I mean, we have plenty, like, we kind of started out like GoFundMe, those, we're going to get them, but then, it's like kind of everybody in big tech, but then, if they want to be the everything app, like, I think that's a good enemy to have. We'll take that. And it might seem, like I'm kind of, I think it's a fair criticism that maybe I'm overly ambitious with the software I'm writing and with like a small budget. But, I think I've kind of decided to embrace that recently and just like, yeah, we're going to beat X.
Good answer. We have one more question. And so how did you guys come up with the Free2Z name, and then maybe touch on how you guys are playing off, free to...
Yeah. So the first domain I got was free to give, but then it was like free to create, free to donate, free to, build community, free to, post my travel blog, free to talk, free to speak, and it's like free to a variable, and then free to Z.cash was there, and I was going to use Zcash from like the beginning. And so, it's free to Z, but then I also have a degree in math. So my favorite set is the integers, which is the big double stroke Z, which is kind of where I don't know, do we have a 2Z logo? We didn't put our new logos on there.
Yeah, no.
But, so, the big Z integers is like all the possible infinite places and space you could go. And then the little z is like, a particular point of, in Z. So Z is just like a great letter.
Yeah. Great.
So yeah, Z is greater than X. Because we never really had an elevator pitch because we're just experimenting initially. But yeah, I think Z is greater than X is our like elevator pitch. That's the official announcement.
Right? Z is greater than X.
Great. Yeah. That's all the questions we had.
Cool.
Thank you guys.
Okay. Great.
Well, good. Well, we're strategically giving you back like 2 minutes so you can catch up to the published schedule.
Yep. Thank you guys.
All right. Thanks.